Hello, everyone, anyone, all the different usernames in chat. Hello to you all. Hi, it's a Monday lunchtime. Don't often do this on Mondays, but here we are. It's another Inter Games event. I am Jonas. I'm the community and events lead at Inter Games. You wouldn't believe how many times I actually have to read my own little bubble on the screen to check who I am. I said it's Monday lunchtime, so we're doing an event today. This is one of our Inter Games events, and it's a live stream on YouTube and LinkedIn to her. So hello to you, the YouTube live audience, and hello to you, the LinkedIn live audience. Never the twain shall meet. And hello to anyone watching the recording. You are far in the future, and maybe YouTube doesn't exist anymore. But let's face it, that's unlikely. Hello everyone. Lovely to see everyone in chat. I hope you're all doing well. Please, this is a very interactive medium today. So please do, if you're watching on YouTube, you can use the chat window to chat with us and let us know how you're doing and get involved in everything that we say today. Today's event is going to be a Q&A session. So sometimes we do events that are portfolio reviews. Sometimes we do events that are a little bit more like a presentation, like a sort of a talk or a masterclass in something specific. Today is going to be a bit more sort of lighthearted, conversational, taking it easy breezy, because we're going to be doing a Q&A with a particular individual, because I'm not just going to question and answer to myself. That is a very different event altogether. Now I'm going to welcome on stage our guest Lucy. There you are, Lucy. Lucy, how's it going?
Hello. Hi, yeah, doing really well. Thank you for having me.
No problem, no problem. I thought rather than try and preempt and say who you are for you, that's a silly thing to do. I've got you right here. And so I'm not going to speak for you. What I'd love to know, Lucy, is a little bit about yourself. Could you tell our audience, please, a little bit like, so who are you? What's your relationship to games in general? And then we can talk a little bit about sort of the context for us meeting today, and we can start sort of talking to the audience and figuring out questions from there. But first of all, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Thank you. I mean, already the introduction, leading up to my introduction, amazing. Hey all, my name is Lucy. My full name is Kyriakidou. But please call me Lucy. My pronouns are she, her. And I have been an artist in games for, I think, about 14 years now, which is insane to say out loud. I specialize in character design and the last few years art direction as well, with my latest project that is out being Disney's Illusion Island, that I was the art director and lead character designer for. I do a bunch of things in the games industry. I'm a limit break mentor. I'm a Women in Games ambassador. I'm a BAFTA member. I do a bunch of talks about body diversity in games. So yeah, keep busy. Keep busy.
Nice. It's definitely one thing I sort of make sure I've always got some references for whoever I'm speaking to. And I notice you've got this lovely website, Lucy Does Art, and in it you've got this list of speaking engagements and appearances, and it's just this really long bullet point list of like, I've been here, I've been there, I've talked about this, I've done this, I've been there, and it's a really comprehensive list. And on the subject of the project that you've most recently worked on, Disney Illusion Island, there it is on me Switch.
Yes.
Yeah. Because one of the last sort of co-op games I've actually played on here. Because it's a great game. It's a great looking game as well. And I think it's a great looking game, kind of builds really nicely into sort of what brings us here to talk today. So you are an artiste. In particular, I think you specialize in 2D character art. Of course, correct me if I'm wrong, or if you've got a sort of a much larger passion and you're like, Jonas, actually my passion is in this. But what you're doing is, so for anyone who doesn't know, if this is your first Inter Games event, just so you know, Inter Games is an organization that works to make the games industry more accessible to people from under-resourced backgrounds. So if you're someone who you come from a low income background, or a sort of a working class, or maybe you sort of in your area you traditionally wouldn't transfer from further education into higher education, that can limit your possibilities in terms of your career massively. And the games industry, we noticed that there's a really big disparity of people from working class backgrounds or lower income backgrounds making it into the games industry and sort of getting careers in the games industry, especially when compared to other sort of careers in the rest of the UK. So one thing that we sort of try and do to solve that is we try and make sure that there are resources available, and that there is education available, and that it is accessible, and that it's easy to get hold of, and also financially accessible. So one thing that we do is we do these sprint courses. And a sprint course is essentially, it's a course that you do where it's led by one sort of industry professional who's going to be there sort of leading the entire course. It's their curriculum. They're going to take you through a piece of work and sort of help you create that work from start to finish to an industry standard, but often to quite sort of similar industry timelines as well. So rather than giving you 3 months to make something, it's more like, no, you have 3 weeks to make this, or a week to do this part of this, because that's exactly what you would be doing in sort of a turnaround environment. You know, there's just this idea of here's something that you can make, and I'm going to show you how to make it and how it would be made to a professional standard. And I mention this sprint course, or these sprint courses, because Lucy, you are in fact leading a sprint course coming up with Into Games. So I know the sprint course is called Design Memorable Game Characters. But you want to tell us a little bit about, like, what does that mean to you? What's your ethos behind that? And what do you want people to kind of get out of the course? Yeah, all yours.
Yeah, of course. So you're right. So character design, 2D character design is what I do. That's my big passion in life and my career, which is nice that they both align. So yeah, I'm doing this sprint course to kind of show everybody who takes part how it works in the industry, how like character design works in the industry. So concepting characters is something that a lot of people want to get into. It's a really fun job. I'm biased, but I mean, it is. And I really want to show everybody what it's like from brief to finish. If you are working in games, like all the steps that you take, or the feedback loops that you go into, an iteration process, but also to give some tips on how to create characters that are not they're a bit more unique, or you kind of like delve into it more and find new ways to express what you're trying to say in your characters, which is something I'm personally like really passionate about, trying to find maybe untapped resources when it comes to what a character would look like. So that's what I'll be doing during the sprint. And yeah, kind of like giving you a little bit of like, hey, this is what I do to kind of make my life easier, to make the process easier. But we'll be going through it all from beginning to end, and real time demonstrations and feedback, which I'm really excited about.
Nice. Thanks for explaining that. Yeah. Obviously, it's your course. It needs to come from you. Just and if you're watching and you're curious about the sprint course, I believe that there should be some sort of link or something in the YouTube description below, or if you're on the LinkedIn, then just check out what Into Games has been talking about. I guarantee you'll be in one of our most recent posts. The courses take place in the evening. I should have mentioned that as well. They're sort of designed to be done alongside full-time job or full-time education, where they just last these like sort of 2 to 3 hour periods on your Monday afternoon, your Tuesday afternoon, your Wednesday afternoon, and they don't take up your weekends either. So really good if you're already part of something that's full-time and you're thinking, oh God, I can't do a full-time education on top of this. Well, don't worry, the course is designed to sort of be built around that. And then within 3 weeks, you've got something really tangible and really kind of great that you can show off to the world and add to your portfolio and strengthen your sort of your core skill set, hopefully making you a little bit more career ready. Now, today's event is really it's kind of just an open Q&A. It's a chance to just talk to you, Lucy, a little bit about your background, a little bit about your ethos, your skills, sort of maybe it's just your perspective on the industry, all of these things and more. And to take part in the Q&A, we have an audience. We have a live audience. So what I would say to you, the audience, is please use the chat to just ask questions. If you've got I suppose really the subject does need to be sort of art, 2D characters, character design, maybe portfolio stuff, maybe freelancing as an artist as well, because Lucy, I know you do a lot of that.
Yes.
And then if it, just also about the games industry, perhaps just being an artist, in this current industry, in this wonderful climate that we call the 2024. But in the meantime, I can think of some really good questions that I know like a lot of sort of entry level community are asking, because that's kind of who we support it into games. I suppose one of the first questions I would sort of ask is, let's say I think I can draw characters, like I can do a head on a body, and I think it looks cool. How do I go from doing that in sort of like a private like room where nobody perceives me and don't look at my work? How do I kind of go from that to someone saying, hello, here's money, draw me characters? Like, what does that transition look like? And is it consistent? Is it sometimes quite different? What is that?
Yeah, that's really interesting. So I would say character design. So concept art in games is a really hard area to get into, a really hard field. And character design is a smaller field within this hard field to get into. So it's I would say quite difficult. It took me quite a few years to specialize in this. It was nice to also try a few other things. You did mention, yes, something I didn't, that I'm freelance. I have been for the 14 years of my career. So I got the chance to try a few different things, but this is not something that you can only do if you're freelancing. But yes, I slowly specialized in it by showing a lot of my work and what I was passionate about online, on LinkedIn, social media. I really like posting my characters in order for people to kind of associate me with character design. So I thought that was like kind of like dressing your social media for the job you want.
Mm-hmm.
It's how I like to say it. But yeah, so being able to draw a character is definitely a really good starting point. There's a lot of iteration in the job. So like you go through, because you never really design a character, and the first character you do is the one that gets picked. So doing that kind of exploration is really great. Challenge yourself, look into costume design and makeup design, or like creature, like different animals, in order to kind of have a really big library of what potential paths you may take, and then kind of show the world and keep showing the world until somebody does go, hey, here's a bunch of money.
So definitely, part of me was saying like, don't perceive me, don't look at my work, but learning to undo that, learning to make your work public, perceivable, and sort of, letting people know that you are constantly doing this, and sort of essentially, I guess, waiting for someone to say, oh, you do that all the time? Here's money.
Exactly.
Do it for me.
Yeah. And honestly, I would say a good 90% of my job is like scribbles and sketches. So a lot of time artists feel like, and I used to be the same, feel like, oh no, my camera
It's
froze.
happened. Yeah, so
Right,
I haven't warned.
Sorry, go on.
You fix it, and I will tell the audience exactly what is
Okay.
going on. So just everyone knows, Lucy's webcam has a lovely little feature. I love this feature so much. It randomly freezes about sort of after 10 minutes of talking, and Lucy just has to leave the room and come back. So only a tiny bit disruptive, but thankfully it's something that we can solve quite quickly. Lucy is back. So there you go. So you were saying 90% of your job is doing sketches and drawings and things like that.
Yeah. First of all, sorry about that. And you could have said anything when I was gone. So yeah. So 90% of my job is doing like sketches and scribbles, and something that artists like even when I was a young artist myself, I used to do is you don't want to show anything until it's finished. But there's definitely a correct way to show a lot of work in progress, because that's what concepting is. People will hire you for your work in progress more than the final result. So it's also like trying to undo what you've been taught about, only show your best work and what that means, because it should be the best work, but what the best work means for the specific field that you want to get into.
It's very like mathematician kind of thinking, right? In maths in school, you're always told, show you're working, like show how you got to the final number. And this is almost like being told you don't get paid for the final number. No one pays you for that. They pay you to see the how you moved the 9 to the 0 and the decimal and the whatever and the whatever. Me and maths, such good friends we are. Yes.
That's such a good way of
yeah, I think it's a good analogy, because
Yeah.
it happens a lot in coding as well. It's a completely different discipline, but the advice there is actually, if you can convince people that you know how it works, and the best way to do that is to talk about not the end product but everything in between. And it's interesting to hear that concept art is essentially that, but for a visual process. It's how did you get to the end process, have that evidence, and have that be the actual product that gets handed over. It's very different, and it's very cool. So then, let's say I can make characters now, and maybe I'm getting closer to getting that paid work. It's happened again, Lucy. It's happened again.
That was really quick.
I know, it was really quick. It's all right. I'll re-ask you this question. You just pop back in.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
I feel bad keep leaving. If it keeps happening, we'll find a time that it stops in a really good place, and I'm gonna
just
see
a really big, just like the whole talk, with like thumbs up and a smile. Yeah. No, we can do that. We can do that.
Cool. I'll be right back again. Sorry, all.
No worries. And then one thing I'm just noticing as well, dear listeners in chat, is I don't see YouTube giving me chats, and like I'm getting paranoid that I've got some glitch and it's not showing me the latest comments. Obviously, if you haven't got a question, you haven't got a question. That's absolutely fine. But if you are listening and you're able to say anything, just let me know that the YouTube chat is working. Otherwise, I'm going to start doing a lot of troubleshooting. Hello, Lucy.
Hello.
I'm just making sure that.
Sorry, go on.
Just making sure that the YouTube chat is working in StreamYard, because I'm like, there's nothing there. Oh, thank you. I'm getting test comments. Cool, that's fine. In that case, people are just warming up questions in their brain. But I do have another question for you, which is, and I could do this all day. But so my next question for you is like, you can draw characters. Maybe you've got a particular way of drawing characters. Maybe you're very good at drawing one character, like little Barrett from Final Fantasy VII over there, or Aerith, or Emmett Selk, or one of the many characters on my wall. How do you sort of go from maybe having your own style to being able to kind of flex to the style of different projects, right? Because you're going to join a project that like they don't want your characters to look like they're from, I don't know, Gravity Falls or a sort of Looney Tunes. They want your characters to look like they're from Disney Illusion Island, or insert particular IP here. So is there do you have any sort of particular advice for someone who really struggles to know how to kind of flex their style?
Oh, yeah. Really good question. And something I always say is, there's no artist that I know of that is great at all characters, doing all characters. And I think of character styles as a range, like super cartoony, like almost like graphic based, to realistic. And A, there's nobody who's good at all of them, and B, people try to prefer kind of specialization. But like if this is the spectrum, like try to don't try to expand everywhere, but just try to have a little bit of give. Or try to, if you can do one style, or like, a very small range of styles, try to be able to do like everything on there. So like animals, creatures, humanoids, robots, all of the things. So it's about figuring out what you enjoy and where you want to be, and try to expand within that. I do a lot of, so I don't really do robots. like do mostly organic stuff rather than hard surface. So like characters and like humanoid characters and creatures, like animals, that kind of thing. But I'm really flexible with style. But I know people who are pretty limited in style, but within that they can do so much. And there's no right way of doing it or wrong way. It'll just depend on like how easy it will be, well, how lucky you will be for the work that your art kind of appeals to and fits into, to have a project at the time that will work with it. So
Yeah,
yeah.
I get you. That reminds me of
Yeah.
that body of water analogy, right? Like you can be shallow and wide, or you can be kind of deep and narrow.
Yes.
So as long as you can master, like, be a shallow lake or be a very deep well, but nobody is an ocean.
Oh my
That's
god,
too much.
your analogies are on point.
I really like
Just
analogies. I really like food analogies, and I haven't thought of any good food analogies yet. We'll see how we go. But so I've got an audience question now,
Ooh.
and that's what we're here for. We're here for audience
Yes.
questions. Again, if you have questions, by the way, no dumb questions. No, no, no dumb questions. They don't exist.
Mm.
Sorry, I don't acknowledge them. So if you have a question and you think it's dumb, I don't. Please put it in chat. I have a question here from, I think it's Gingeriness06. Gingeriness06. So I guess this is particularly in terms of your experience and your path in the industry. When, how hard was it for you to get that first foot in the door of the industry? There we go.
So hard. It was really, really difficult. I went about it a bit of a way that not many people did. I finished uni, and a couple of weeks later, I found this freelance opportunity to work on an indie kids game. And I took it, and freelancing was what I wanted to do. So after that, even like when I finished that project, I kept freelancing and I kept trying to look for work. And it took me, I would say, 3-4 years to start feeling comfortable with where I was, and I had to work on animation industry and like some educational stuff. So yeah, it was definitely really hard. What I now tell people is kind of what changed my career from from one day to the next, and that was networking. And I know everybody goes on about it, but it's because it works. I feel like I'm selling like diet pills or something, but it works. Like networking is what completely changed how I work and how much work I got. Going to events and attending online events and talking to people. Um, you would be surprised to see, like, to hear how many jobs don't get put on websites. It's literally just, hey, I'm looking for this person, do you know anyone? And that's usually how people get work. So you just need to make sure that you're one of the people that they think of, and they're like, hey, it's Lucy, I do character design. If you know of any projects, let me know. And then keep in touch with people online, like on LinkedIn. And what I was saying earlier about posting your work. So you're the one they remember if work comes up. And I think that is really the way forward if you want to get work in the industry, if you want to get into the industry.
On that subject of networking, and I've just sort of flicked my eyes to go double check. So 10 days ago on this very YouTube channel, we did a great talk with Gianluca Montacqua. God, I'm going to butcher that name now. But Gianluca did a talk on how to network. So because we recognize the power of networking into games, like we do know it's fantastic. And I'm definitely a direct beneficiary of networking. So we're not just selling diet pills over here, guys. It's real. It's real.
Yeah.
It has an impact.
Yes.
Cool. Gindrina06, thank you for your excellent question. We've got a few more questions in chat now. Please do keep them coming, everyone. So Baked Soda. Hi there, Lucy. I've always enjoyed how gestural your drawings are. I wanted to know, how do you manage to create such dynamic and fluid character gestures for your designs?
Ooh. That's interesting. Yeah, I mean, that's the one thing I really pride myself pride myself in. So I may not be able to do hyper realistic characters or anything, but I'm like, I always know that what I'm passionate about and what I enjoy doing and what I do well is create dynamic um characters. So thank you for noticing. I think it comes from me studying animation. So it was all about motion. Um, and honestly, back at uni, my characters were definitely not dynamic. I would draw characters that would just stand. Um, but what I found was definitely like studying characters in motion helped a lot. Live drawing changed my life. Um, and, just literally just finding pictures of people dancing and, like drawing that, like doing live drawing off that. Yeah, it really changed how I look at characters. There will be some things that I'm gonna quickly sell my sprint here. But there's going to be some other things that I talk about during the sprint about creating dynamic shapes, and like how to make a character, even static character, feel dynamic within that, with just the use of scale and action lines. But yeah, honestly, just it's all about studying characters in motion that will help you do that.
Sorry, I was just I've got your sort of your portfolio
Mm.
up here on screen and just getting very distracted by it. But no, thank you for answering that question. I wanted to make sure that when someone was kind of referencing how gestural your work is, I was like, well, let's get some of that work up on the screen. But yeah, so there it is for everyone to take a look at. This is your website, lucydoesart.co.uk. But anyways, I shall remove the distraction and we shall move on to the next
That's
question.
okay.
Thank you for that really wonderful question, Baked Soda. Really appreciate you jumping in there. Now I've got another question from Eric Gorniki Vargas. Again, sorry if I butcher names. I do that sometimes. Lucy, when studying to get better on the craft, what do you focus on apart from the fundamentals?
Yeah, really interesting. If you want to do humanoid characters, I mentioned before, study costume design, get books on like historical fashion, look at makeup tutorials, hair tutorials is all stuff that people, like day to day use, but it's something you don't really think about unless you have to draw someone, and then you need to make sure the knowledge you have of what humans could look like is wide enough. Look at different cultures. That's something that I feel like gets overlooked, and there's so much like wealth of reference there. If you want to study animals, yeah, just look into all the different animals like dinosaurs. So just try to think of the subjects that you're interested in, um, and all the aspects that make them up. Like I said, like humans, we tend to express ourselves through our clothes, our hair, our makeup, but also looking at the people around you and how different they could look. I mentioned how I'm a really big advocate for body diversity. Um, and I feel like in games, we don't do as good enough a job in representing literally the people around us. Um, so yeah, just like look around and see the different people and how they express themselves and how they look. Or like I said, if you're more animal or like creature based, look at different creatures, um, like from dinosaurs to current animals and fish, and just yeah, really try to get a lot of pictures in your head and like widen the kind of frame of reference that you have.
Yeah, no, like that sort of lack of body diversity is so massive in video games, especially like I play so many games that are so inspired by sort of the anime aesthetic, and it's different colored clothing, different colored hair, maybe some sort of like accessory that really like makes that character stand out. But it is strip away those three parts, and it is like the carbon copy, same body type, just over and over and over again. So really encouraging to hear that, that is something that you are aware of in your work and that you express in your work, and you're sort of, challenging that. And I think, really encouraging to say that here, because hopefully now you, the audience, will go on to think about body diversity in your work, because gosh darn, it could be better. Right. Where's our next question? Our next question comes from Into Games moderator Samantha. Hello, Samantha. Samantha Draws Stories says, are there any differences within the role of character design in animation for like TV and games TV and films and games?
Mhm.
Is it the same process, or do you find the role changes dependent on the project?
Very good question. So I'm mostly, give me one sec. I should be drinking water. Hydrate, people, hydrate. So most of my experience is in games. That's what I specialize in. That's what I prefer. But I have found the biggest difference for me is that game design, game character design is a lot more about function. It's not just about creating pretty looking characters or visually pleasing characters, or showing the personality, but it's things like something I always, like an example I always give people is, if you're creating a character that's like a playable character for a third person game, people will be looking at your character's back for like 99% of the game. So you really need to think about your camera angles. You need to think about your zoom levels. You need to think about whether your character will need to jump or how high. So it's a lot more, I think, in games about function and what will be required from a technical point of view, and from an accessibility point of view, of your character, what will be required of them. I would say your characters need to be visually like recognizable instantly. So if somebody looks at the screen, they kind of know where to find their character and what's an NPC and what's an enemy. So yeah, it's all about function. When I would say an animation, it's more about personality and color, and kind of making sure that it works with what you're trying to say.
Nice. Thank you for the wonderful answer, and thank you, Samantha, and Eric earlier, by the way, for your questions. Keep them coming. There's some really good stuff coming in. Really, really appreciate everyone jumping on board with this. Next question is Cuba. Cuba asks, what do you think is the bare minimum for a complete character sheet? I've shown character concepts that felt complete to me, only to be told that I need more expressions, actions, materials, etc. I believe your webcam has frozen, by the way, but if you're happy to continue, we can continue. You can also just, if you press stop cam, I think it will just go to a very simple avatar.
Let me stop cam and then see if I can restart it once it's okay, once it's happy.
Yeah, give it a few minutes, but carry on for now, yeah.
Yeah. So the question was about character sheets and character reference. So turnaround is definitely one of the kind of basics that you should be given to the next person, whether that's 3D modeler or animator, like 2D animator, for your character sheets. But you need to think about what the next person will need to do their job. So does your character have textures on it, and do you need references to show what those textures are? So like colors and textures is one sheet that you'll probably need. Expressions and actions are definitely another thing. Depend on the project and depending on what your character is. So like for a small NPC, I wouldn't do that. But for main characters, I definitely would. Because the animators need to stay true to what your character design, like who your character is. So think of those not just as, oh, this person needs me to do this, but it's also for them to kind of understand, no, still no. For them to understand what is in your head about how they move, like how their face changes when they create different, sounds, when they're happy, sad. But yeah, so usually I will say for like main characters, so the max that you would have is your turnaround, colors and textures and patterns. And that will have reference as well, usually like photo reference or whatever you need to have. Yeah, like actions, expressions. And sometimes you may need some like zoomed in things, so like your face to kind of like show like the iris, like what color that is, or like, you know, what it looks like exactly. Yeah, I would say that's you. I mean, you pretty much mentioned what the what the basics are. But don't think that you will have to do that for every NPC or anything. NPCs you just will do. Sometimes I don't even create turnarounds for NPCs, depending on how comfortable I feel for the animators to, and how comfortable the animators feel. But make sure the image I give them is, it summarizes the character well. It's not just a character standing front on. It more shows their personality and maybe the angle they're going to be seen in if they're in 2D. But usually they have a frame of reference based on the main characters, how the rest will go. So they will base their expressions and actions on that.
No, brilliant. Thanks for expanding on that. Thank you, Cuba, for the excellent question there. Yes, no, the webcam is still frozen, but if you want, I'm going to just quickly talk about the sprint course for a minute, because there's a really great comment from Baked Soda. So you can use that opportunity to disappear and come back.
Perfect.
If you want.
I'll be right back.
If you want. Baked Soda, I just saw that you're interested in the sprint course. Great. This is probably a good chance just for me to be like, oh, when you come to these events, we want to make sure that you are rewarded. Thank you for engaging with Into Games. Thank you for engaging what we do. If you're interested in the sprint course, you can use this little code. You can use Lucy55, and it gives you 55% off the sprint course. So if you're like hovering over that checkout button, stop, use the coupon code, please. It gives you 55% off. I believe it's valid for sort of a couple of days from this event. So I've got used before the 19th of October. So I think it will still work on the 18th of October all day. But then come the 19th, which is Saturday this week, the code no longer works. So if you're interested, take a look at the course, take a look at the URL, the website. If you're still not sure, use this event as a chance to ask questions. And yeah, then there's a bit of a discount for you. Lucy is back. Let's go to the next question. How are we doing for time as well? Oh, look at us. We've got loads of time. We're breezing through it, everyone. Thank you for the really great comments and questions. Now, I love this. The next question comes from Technically Into Games, but I didn't type the question. It's our content creator, Mivi, who just seems to be moonlighting as Into Games once in a while. Mivi from Into Games asks, what's your approach to breaking down and digesting a brief? Obviously, so when someone just says, oh, we want a character, tall, strong, blonde, go. So you get a brief for a character. Maybe what does that brief look like? Because I just gave the silliest example to you. But how do you then turn that into what you're going to create, into visuals?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I've never had that question before. So usually my briefs are like, hey, we need, our hero is a doctor, and we imagine, that they need to do this and this. So I kind of need to know the gameplay around it for the reasons I mentioned before. And, they're like a cyberpunk doctor with an edgy attitude, for example. Sometimes there's a lot more information than that, but I try to really take the key words from it. I open my Photoshop, my Procreate, whatever I'm using, and I write the words, and then I take away the words that I don't care about. So if it's like, oh, it's I don't know, an old man who fishes. I always like to kind of explore a little bit further than that, because like, what does old mean? And like, what if it wasn't a man? So I always like sprinkle in a few different options. But I tried to keep to the the core of the character, like I mentioned earlier, like a cyberpunk doctor, did I say, with an edgy attitude. So I would keep the cyberpunk doctor, edgy, and I would look into it, but also I would try to find visuals that take me in a different direction, or like different ways to express a doctor. I don't remember what movie I was watching, but it was the nurses were wearing. It was based in India, and the nurses, they were not wearing the Western nurse outfit that you're kind of used to. And I'm like, oh, that's so interesting, and I never would have thought. I can tell it's a nurse, but that's not my idea. If somebody was like, draw a nurse, so I always let myself get inspired by all the little ways that things can go. So Google is my big friend. And then I usually create like little Pinterest boards, or like mood boards on a sheet, like a Photoshop sheet. So I try to take the brief that is just with words and turn into a visual brief for me before actually starting to draw. Because like I said, it's great to kind of let yourself be inspired and surprised during the research.
And again, it's encouraging to hear that, right? Because I think we're getting wiser to like the lack of diversity in certain bits of media. Like we're starting to see when things aren't different. Obviously, the older you get as well, the more you sort of realize, like, I've seen this a lot. It's kind of not interesting anymore. And then something comes along and just like takes that little hint of a culture that you're unfamiliar with, but like you didn't realize how visually sort of interesting or sort of what visual language that culture had until someone kind of dripped it over your slightly more Western sort of media or something, and you're like, oh wow, I love that. I wish more people were doing this.
And you end up creating something much more unique and surprising to people, something they're not used to seeing, which is great.
Yeah, nice. So getting that brief and just also giving it that little like, well, what if we just went left a little, what's over there? Brilliant stuff. Okay, lovely. Next question. There's some wonderful comments and sort of conversations in chat, by the way. So everyone, thanks to everyone for chatting with each other. It's lovely to see. And thank you, Mivy, from Inter Games, for the question. Next one is from Dylan Shambor, another representative from the moderation team on the Discord. Hello, Dylan. When reviewing an artist's portfolio, is there a limit on how many projects should that artist be including in their portfolio, or go over to make it look hireable, or to a recruiter reaching out for a conversation? So I guess that's a little bit more like, if you've got like sort of a short amount of time to show someone your work, what's a good amount of, how many projects, how many pieces of work, how many PNGs are you allowed to load up in this kind of small amount of time that shows that you can do this? Is it 100? Is it 2? Is it 10?
Yeah, the age-old question. So I would say a really good way, especially if you're just starting out, so people don't know your work and you don't have work that could be like, oh, I know this work from this game. Like, I know this person worked on this game, so I can see their work in context. So I would say try to have around three different projects at least. So, they're not all from the same kind of world and the same kind of brief. And within that, for character design, I would have some thumbnails, like your exploration, and then some, like you can show your process, like a little bit of iteration, and then your final with like the sheets, the reference sheets that we're talking about earlier. If you have that for at least one or two of the projects, the other one could just be lineups or, something else. You just need to show that you can do that. And at least one of the projects to show your process. But having said that, sometimes it is about luck if somebody's looking for you, like an art director, for a project, because for Illusion Island, we hired somebody who had we saw 2 images, and we started talking to them to get them on board, and they ended up on the project because they were the right images for what we were doing. So I always say, try to have 3 a little bit different from each other. So one of them at least could be the right one. and try to show your techniques in at least 2 of those as well.
Nice. Thank you for the question, Dylan. And thank you for the wonderful answer. There's so many good questions here. So I'm kind of breezing through them and cutting down discussion a bit just so that we can get to as many of these questions as possible. Baked Soda is back with the question. How do you avoid the ArtStation trap and focus on creating varied iterations? How do you avoid the ArtStation trap and focus on creating varied iterations during your design process versus making a pretty picture?
So first of all, I'm not on ArtStation anymore, so that helped. But first of all, I can't really afford to do that because most of my work now is work rather than personal work, and you can't just make a pretty picture for work. I enjoy it though. I mean, the reason that I'm not in that is because I really enjoy creating the varied iterations more than a pretty picture at the end. And I would say if you make that part of your drawing routine, you will end up doing so as well. It start becoming second nature. But yeah, it's really hard to kind of say other than like be really conscious if you're doing it and just be like, hey, do you know what? I'm just gonna look at something different, create some different things. The one thing I would say to really try to avoid, and that's in portfolios as well, and like, you know, posting like your work. We need to iterations and like costume designs are very different things. Like to me, having the same character with different clothes is not and hair is not really character design iterations because they're the same body type, they're the same like heights, and they're the same proportions. So literally just if you're done one iteration, just be like, okay, I'll scrap that. What else can I make? So we'll do that.
Nice, brilliant. Thank you very much again, Baked Soda, for the question. And thanks for answering the question. Next question is from my favorite Halloween movie that doesn't exist, Bear versus Zombies 047. Has AI affected your work? I mean, as you know, there are many different types of AI. There's the AI that decides whether or not your enemy is going to duck and cover or shoot you. But I guess in this case, we're talking more about the generative AI, the AI that tends to spit out content based on what it thinks it knows. And so, yeah, does it affect your work? Do you have any ways that do you use it in a way that you are happy with and find comfortable, or do you see it sort of affecting the landscape? But specifically, do you see less work because of how it is at the moment?
I don't use it. I don't agree that it should be used in a creative context. Because there's so many people that like artists that have so much to give, and you wouldn't get that opinion, you know, that like artists have, and that unique point of view from you know, taking content from online and spitting out a picture. So yeah, personally, I don't use it. I have been lucky to have, you know, I'm quite far in my career. So I have clients that I go back to, or, you know, my work is seen in like bigger projects. So I wouldn't say that I've been affected. And if I have, it's not anything noticeable. But I tend to work with indie and AA studios. And so far, they tend to be pretty happy to create. The passion for the work is still very much there. That they do want that human touch in their work. I do know that it has affected other people's work though, which is really sad.
Okay, well, thanks for going into that. Obviously, yeah, AI is a massive subject, but it's interesting. You know, it's nice for you to just talk about your personal experience with it and your perspective of it. So thank you for doing that. And Bear versus Zombie 047, thank you for the film inspiration and your question. Now, one is sort of specifically on the sprint, which is definitely worth asking because, you know, it's what brings us here today. It's the context. So Samantha Draws Stories, hello again, asks, may I ask what kind of assignments or tasks will be set up in the sprint? Is it to be making a brief, etc.? Samantha is interested in the sprint.
Yeah. So it will literally be everything. Like if we were all working for a client, there'll be a brief that people can either follow or as closely as they want. Because I'm not gonna make people follow a brief they don't want to follow, but I would recommend try to follow a brief that maybe that you don't have a choice over, because that's what will happen when you work. So what we'll be doing is we'll be starting with like thumbnails, so rough sketching, and then like what will be the next process if I was working with a client or if we were working for a client, which will be, well, actually first it will be collecting references, then it will be like thumbnails, and then we'd go into things like how you iterate on designs and how you look at your designs with a critical eye. And think of those gameplay considerations that I talked about before kind of moving into storytelling, and all of that through kind of sketching and seeing your designs evolve until we get to a final lineup of characters that will feel diverse and dynamic, and would fit the brief for that imaginary client. But yeah, we'll be working through the brief, artistically, just drawing through the different stages, and discussing how each stage can be made better or easier, just by thinking critically and thinking about the game.
Brilliant stuff. Thank you very much for expanding on that one as well. And again, sprint course link in the doobly-doo, the what's it code Lucy55, 55% off. There you go. You've heard it before. We'll spin through it, but just in case you weren't just in case you maybe popped to the loo or something, you've just come back and you didn't know about it. There it is. If you want that information, by the way, again, this whole video will be available as a recording, sort of to rewatch on YouTube. So you can scroll back to whatever part of the video you need. You can re-listen to the advice. You can rewatch whatever. If we're going too fast for you to make notes or something, or you're like, what was that thing again? Don't worry, you can absolutely come back to this.
Do you want us to do like a quick fire so we can, if we have a lot of questions, so I can try to answer as many as I can?
Yeah, so what I'm going to do is, we'd like to wrap up at 2:00. I can see 3 really great questions that I'm going to pick from in this final selection. And it's just because they're quite different to what we've been asked so far. And I think they're also, they seem to be quite important as well. So the first question is, it is from Mivia Into Games again, but it's about freelancing. As a freelancer, how do you go about protecting yourself from presenting and delivering work to a client, especially if that work is on quite small scale, where you might not have some of the protections around a bigger client and a bigger project?
So first of all, keep email, like all your agreements, keep it on email as well. So like if you agree and be like, hey, so we're doing this work for that much money. Does this all sound good? And keep that email back confirming everything, because that will have legal standing. I don't send source files, so I send kind of smaller versions of the art before like everything's agreed on, and I only send Photoshop files when invoices get sent. If it's someone I haven't worked with before, I may ask for a deposit like before, or cut up the work in stages. But if it's something really, really small that will take me a few hours, I may ask for the money upfront as well. So try to make sure you have things in writing, and make sure that they don't have access to what they fully need until you've been paid, or that you're sure you're getting paid.
Brilliant stuff. Thank you for answering that. The next question I really want to go into is, in particular, it's a bit more of a question about leadership, I suppose, or directing. What was your experience as an art director and the path you took to reach it? And do you have any advice for people that might want to be art directors?
So I got into art directing because I joined a project, Battletoads, as a character designer, and I worked really well with the creative director. I worked really well with him. So I moved to lead character designer, because we got each other, and I could kind of understand and put on paper what he was thinking of. So then when the next project came on, he was like, we need an art director. Do you want to art direct? And I was like, let's do it. I don't have any experience, but let's do it. What I would say, so usually people work their way up to becoming art directors, and you need to find a team that works for you as well, at least when you're making that kind of like during that process afterwards, so you can work with different teams. Art direction is very different to art in general. I would say it's more people management position than it is an artist position. Obviously, it's amazing that you get to kind of guide and set the style of the game in a way that you think will work the best. But you need to, like, some of the challenges I found is trying to find the balance to make sure that the artists also put their, their kind of like own spin on it. Like we all worked on together. It wasn't just me dictating the style. And then managing people. I would say if you're interested in art direction, know that most of your work will be giving feedback, doing reviews, and talking to people, like figuring out how they prefer to get their notes, attending meetings, fighting with design, and just generally there's a lot that I kept missing on Illusion Island, kept missing my deadlines because I like for character design, because I had so much else to do. So be prepared for that.
Yeah, no, I think you hear that a lot, right? Is that step into any kind of people management is so crazy different.
Yeah.
And it's interesting to hear that, with art direction as well, there is that aspect to think about. Now I can see that your webcam is frozen, but we're going to ask one more question.
Yeah, let's just go.
Let's just go. Let's do it. So the last question, and I just find this one really interesting as well, because it's going to happen to every artist, right? What was it like, from Andrew Vaughn? And by the way, thank you for that last question, Kuruchi. I didn't read out your name, Kuruchi. Andrew Vaughn asks, how is it working / designing with intellectual property like Mickey and Disney characters? And did it come with its challenges?
So you would think that, but honestly, Disney were amazing. We only had one note on Mickey, and that was because I made Mickey's butt too big. Yeah. But what helped was we're all fans of the IP. So the choices we made in character design, they were all based on who the character is, and especially the history of Mickey. We based the character on, or like the first few iterations of Mickey. And yeah, what really, really, really helped was taking Disney through that journey that we took. And like I was saying earlier, people and characters, like when people give you character design work, is more about this journey getting to the final character rather than the final character themselves. So taking them through that journey, and explaining why we made their hands and feet bigger for gameplay reasons, and being able to be seen on a Switch easier, or the color choices that we made, it kind of made them understand why the design was the way it was and why it worked the best for our game. So yeah, I would say take people on a journey and explain your thought process, because they won't know that, and they need to understand it.
Nice. Rest in peace, Mickey's bigger ass. But otherwise, that sounds phenomenal. Right. Well, given that it's now just gone 2:00, and the webcam has given up the ghost, but rather than ask it to come back to life, I think we can just wrap up the event here.
Yeah.
In podcast format. So first off, a massive thank you to everyone in the audience who has been asking questions and engaging with us and chatting with us throughout this entire thing. That's just been really cool of you. Really, thank you so much for supporting the event, for getting involved. I hope that as a reward, you have learned something, that you've had something back today that's like meant something to you, that you've got a takeaway, and that you've just, that this has given you some vim and vigor to go and do some character art and sort of level up that side of your artistic expression. Thank you, Lucy, for joining us on the Intergames channel today. Thank you sort of preemptively for the work that you're going to be doing on that sprint course. It sounds phenomenally good. If I could even draw a smiley face, I'm sure there's a lot I would learn from it, but I'll just have to leave it to the real artists out there.
And thank you for setting everything up so well, and the questions, and moderating this so well.
Appreciate it. Obviously, audiences, this is Intergames. If you're watching this live, it is Monday afternoon. We'll be back on Wednesday, I believe, with 2 whole events. One is on quality assurance, the other one is a talk with Oliver William Walker, who is a level designer, and then on Thursday we have a talk about narrative design. So if you are really cross-disciplinary, you can come to all of those events and learn huge amounts. So more coming up on the Intergames channel. Sign up to the Luma pages, join the Discord if you haven't joined the Discord already. I should talk more about the Discord, but we're running out of time. You get the gist of it. And then just one last time, so Lucy, you're doing this sprint course with Intergames. It's going to be lasting 3 weeks. I believe it starts on the first Monday of November. So it's 4th of November it starts.
Yeah, I think so.
And check. Yeah, I think it's. I could be wrong, but yeah, it's coming up in November, 100%. There's still a handful of spaces on that. They are limited. So if everyone in the audience tries and jump in all at the same time, we could very well reach capacity. So if you're umming and ahhing or you're thinking about it, go check out the course site. You can split the payments into smaller little bunches as well, so it's not a massive pot of your money. And if you are someone from a low-income background, or you have a sort of an under-resourced background in any way, we've got a page that's all about affordability, and that basically tells you what financial support that we can give you, which can often mean really, really heavy discounts. So please, if you are someone who you think you might be eligible for that, please do see what the website kind of says on that subject, because it could be that this is more affordable than you think it is. With that said, I think that's pretty much everything. Lucy, do you have any final, super mega final words of wisdom? Do you want to just plug anything? Is there something that you need to say?
Oh God, I feel like I've been plugging the sprint course this whole time, but please join us if you can. I'm really excited to share this. This is like the first time going so in depth about my process and how to really elevate your designs. But generally, have fun and try to represent yourselves in the designs you make. That's what I always tell people: yourselves and the people you love, and the character designs you create.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. I think that about does it for today, everyone. So have a lovely beginning to the week, everyone. See you at future events. See you in the Intergames community if you want to jump in and you're already there. Just have a great week, everyone. Thanks for joining us. I realize we can't both do the thing where we wave goodbye, but I'll wave goodbye.
My camera has fixed itself now.
No, it's fine. I'll wave goodbye for the both of us. All right. See you later, everyone. Thanks for joining us.
Bye.
Bye-bye.